So today I'm at St. Mary's Catholic Cemetery. This is actually my hometown of Anderson, Indiana. I want to show a couple of graves. One is of some historical significance, and the other one is more local. But the first one I'm going to talk about, a gentleman by the name of Louis Weichmann. You may or may not have heard the name before. Louis Weichmann was part of the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln. He was actually arrested and turned state's witness. And he was actually an acquaintance of Mary Surratt and had overheard information. At the time, he didn't know what it was. But after the assassination of President Lincoln, he knew what he had heard had significant meaning. He was arrested along with the other conspirators. And like I say, he turned state witness. And actually, during the trial of Mary Surratt and the other conspirators, he took the witness stand and actually told his story of what he heard. And they say his story, his time on the stand is what convicted the conspirators. So Louis Weichmann, after the trial, came to Anderson, Indiana. He had family that lived here. His sister lived here. His brother-in-law was a priest here in Anderson. And when Louis Weichmann died in 1902, he was running a boarding house on the west side of Anderson. And this is his grave, Louis Weichmann, 1842 to 1902. And like I say, he came here and lived with his sister, Philomena, and her husband, Charles O'Crawley. And this is the grave of Father Weichmann, who I believe was a cousin of Louis Weichmann. So yeah, you never know what's in your backyard. The history of people who live near you. So in my backyard is a gentleman who was a witness in the trial of the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln. So now we're going to go to another grave. This is more local, but it's an interesting story. In April of 1867, there was a couple of gentlemen who thought that their neighbor stole some meat out of their storage. And so they went over to the neighbor. His name was Milton White. And they confronted Milton White. One of the guys that went over to talk to Milton was a man by the name of Daniel Hoppus. Again, this was April of 1867. And so they went over there, and the gentleman that went with Mr. Hoppus, he kind of hung out while the other two gentlemen talked. After a while, Mr. Hoppus, he just never returned. And so the gentleman that he was with went back to his house, and the next morning him and some other people went over to the house of Milton White, and they confronted him, and they found Mr. Hoppus' body. He was beaten with a club, and they actually found the club. And so Milton White was arrested, and during the trial, of course, this club was part of the trial, and actually he was convicted fairly easily. So that brings us out here to this cemetery. Now this is like I say, a Catholic cemetery, so you see a lot of religious symbols on the graves. There's a lot of pastors or priests buried out here. But this part of this cemetery, it's the northwest part, was actually known as Potter's Field. And there's a lot of unmarked graves back here. So back to the story. April of 1867 was the month the murder took place. In November 1st, 1867, Mr. Milton White was hanged for the murder of Mr. Hoppus. His body was brought out here to St. Mary's Cemetery, and he was buried in Potter's Field right here. And according to our local county historian, this tree was planted on top of the grave of Milton White. What's even more interesting about the story was Milton White was the last person to be hanged in Madison County, Indiana. November 1st, 1867. This is kind of an interesting story. Then as we walk around, I wanted to visit one last grave. No one famous, no one of any significance to us, significant to her family. And the only reason I wanted to visit was because of the marker. As I was walking through the cemetery, I noticed the marker. It's kind of unique. And this is the grave of Miss Ella Medley. You see how it's really just carved. Looks like someone just took a slab and just carved the information into it. Ella Medley, born January 15th, 1882, died August 9th, 1960. I imagine Ella either could not afford a marker, family could not afford one, and someone just had that made.